Let's talk about decluttering today. More specifically, things I decluttered to live a better life. Now, minimalism and decluttering in general, I think, should lead to a better life. So everything we declutter is a tiny piece and a tiny part towards living a better life. But today I want to talk about some things specifically that might help you to get an idea how to really use decluttering to your advantage and how to make sure that we're not just blindly getting rid of stuff and consuming stuff and try minimalism and maybe fail at minimalism, but that we're actually making sure that the decluttering we do does have a positive impact. So I made a list of things that I remember decluttering or that I'm actively decluttering now that help me live a better life. And not all of these things are actually things, but a few are. So let's get started. Number one is the number of electronic devices I own. And I mean especially devices that are not like for the household, but more so for entertainment and creativity. So I used to have a laptop at work. I used to have a tablet. I used to have a big DSLR camera and a small camera. I used to have an iPod, a phone, and I'm sure I'm even forgetting things now, but I decluttered these and have less now, and it made my life better because I don't have like multiple devices for one thing. Because having multiple devices always made me like have stuff on the wrong device, or like I have to decide which one to take. Do I take the laptop? Do I take the tablet? But if I take the tablet, then that's not as powerful. And then the big and small camera was always like, if I take the small one, then it's lighter, but then it doesn't have the capability of the big one. And then maybe I can't take the pictures I want to take. And I regret not taking the big one. Having so many devices, for me, it became sometimes difficult to make sure that everything is charged when I need it. So decluttering my electronic devices made a difference and changed my life for the better. Now I do have only one camera, actually only one lens. I have one laptop, I have one phone, and no like iPod or something like that. And I also do have an ebook reader, but I already see that device is something that I don't use that often, and I'm thinking about should I bring it, should I not bring it, but at least it has like one specific purpose that all the other devices kind of can't really do. Number two is things I bought for making something. For example, at one time I wanted to make bags and sell them, and so I bought a lot of like accessories you need to sew bags. And they were laying around and I never made these bags, like I made one or two, but I started feeling guilty. And that is just one example for many things I had in my life. Pictures I printed out for friends, but I ended up never giving them to them and losing contact with some. And like the things that stack up at home that have a certain purpose, but you're not gonna do it or you don't want to do it. Hobby gear that you're not using anymore. I think it just takes a lot of space in your home and on your mind. And at some point, I think it's more beneficial to just say like, well, I'm not gonna do it, so let's just get rid of it and be okay with failing or quitting this one thing I wanted to do with it. Another thing I declutter to live a better life is sentimental items. Now, I know there are like different opinions about sentimental items. Some people like to keep a lot of them or none of them at all, and I think I'm somewhere in between. But for me personally, I used to have a lot of sentimental items. I think if you would weigh all the categories of stuff I had at home, sentimental items would maybe have been the most heavy category. And that's also because it was a lot of paper, a lot of drawings and pictures. And they were not useful and they were just a lot. So to look at them, I would maybe need to take a whole day or two to actually look at each single piece. And it was just too much for me to actually appreciate them. And so by decluttering them, I could make sure that I keep my favorites, that it doesn't take up as much space, and it's not as heavy, but I mean, that's irrelevant when you're not just moving maybe. But also I think in my case, it's different from when you have a lot of sentimental items that are also useful. Then of course you can use them and keep them. But I think if you just store them away, and if they're too much for you to actually go there and look at them, then there's no reason for having them like this, because it only makes sense to keep sentimental items if they're accessible to you, if you like looking at them, if you have a certain value from owning them at all. And so I think decluttering my sentimental items was really a good idea because it helped me to think about the situations and people and the feelings I have for these items again. It helped me prioritize, it helped me look at them several times by decluttering them. And now I have a number that I can actually look at, that I can actually appreciate, which is a lot better than the overwhelming amount I had before. Now the light is changing a lot. I hope you can still appreciate this video, but let's continue with the fourth thing, which is a bunch of clothes. Now decluttering clothes, I think, is something that almost everybody wants to do and does while decluttering and becoming a minimalist. And it makes sense on so many levels. But what I want to touch on here is a way it made my life better is through decluttering things that I was not excited for. Like I kept so many items that I thought I had to own, or that somebody else told me I had to own, or that I liked in the past or had to own in the past, but they were just not right for my current life. So they were just items I did not like wearing, that didn't fit well anymore, that I just did not need, and were never items I liked wearing. And so I think decluttering clothes, and that also goes for other items in your house that are just not your favorite, that you don't enjoy using, and especially if you have enough other stuff that you can use, I think that can make your life so much better, because it just gets rid of a lot of actually excess stuff. It's just stuff that you can easily cut away from your life and you won't notice a difference in a sense of missing it, but it's something you haven't used anyways, or you only used feeling bad. So I think it makes your life so much better when you declutter things that you don't use, that you had because you thought you needed to, and that you don't like using. Number 5 is maybe an unconventional one, and I have made a video about it in the past. I think it's 3 years ago, and that's music. So about 10 years ago, I decluttered music out of my life. And I'm actually thinking about inviting it back into my life, but it has really made my life better because of the following reasons. So I used to listen to a lot of music as a teenager and I enjoyed it a lot, and so it did add value to my life back then. But whenever my iPod broke and I had a very, very overwhelming and weird library of illegally downloaded music and legally purchased music, and it was just a whole mess. And I used to then only listen to music on my computer, and because phones did not have enough storage to actually, I just didn't use music on my phone, and then I did not have the right speakers anymore, or headphones that were good enough for me to enjoy the music. And all of these things made it physically complicated but on top of that, I also just realized that a lot of times I enjoy silence more than music. Silence was adding more value to my life than music would have, because it gave me more space to think, more space to rest, more space to maybe also figure out some problems and relax and be myself, instead of me thinking about the lyrics or singing along or choosing the next song and things like that. And so just for the past 10 years, I did not actively listen to music. Of course, sometimes there's music playing, and in general, I love music. But having that process of putting on music, of choosing music, of owning music, of paying for a subscription for Spotify or something like that, that would just have been so much waste of money, waste of time, and it was just not something I needed. And so choosing to not have music in my life made my life a lot easier. During the past few months, I enjoyed or craved listening to music again. I did it once for an hour, I think. But maybe music is coming back into my life, and maybe I'm going to make a video about that in the future. But I think it's something worth considering. And maybe for you it's not music, but it's Netflix or shows or podcasts, or I don't know, YouTube. If you still watch YouTube, please also watch my channel, because it is my income. But declutter what's not adding value to your life. Another thing I decluttered is every single bag and purse and backpack I owned except for one. And you might know the problem of one day you carry one backpack and then the next day you carry another backpack backpack or bag, and then you suddenly realize that something you need is still in the bag from yesterday. Or you unpack your stuff and then 3 weeks later it's like, I missed this one item, where could it be? And then you have to go through 10 bags, or you even forget to look in your bags and you find it randomly like 2 months later when you use the bag again. So things like that are just completely eliminated if you only have one bag. Also, kind of the decision of like, if you're packing for a trip, or even if you're going out for school or grocery shopping or whatever, having to make a decision on like which bag to take and then possibly regretting it, or like last minute changing the luggage, because that's stuff I used to do when I had many bags and pieces of luggage. And right now I just only have one backpack and I use it for everything. That's great, because I can never make the wrong decision, and everything I left in my bag is always going to be in there. And I actually have like one small bag as well, but I have to be honest, I didn't really use it, so I'm thinking about decluttering it. But that bag is like so different and so small that there's nothing in there. And so the whole problem of deciding and leaving stuff in your bag doesn't occur with that. But I can highly recommend, with categories that make sense for you, to declutter everything except for one item, or one item per category. You can have one piece of luggage, one handbag, one, I don't know, for your different purposes. But that just eliminates so much like decision fatigue and making wrong choices, forgetting stuff in your bags, so I can highly recommend it. Another thing that I have decluttered from my life is items that have a very specific purpose. Now, sometimes that definitely makes sense, but for me, it happens that I had like, for example, some coats, or I think it's generally more so clothes, but that of course also goes for kitchen items, but I just never invited them into my life in the first place. And if you have these items that are for a very specific purpose, then there's not many occasions throughout the year to actually use it. And then when an occasion comes up where you could wear your heels that are perfectly for an evening out, just like this, then maybe you have another favorite pair, so you consider if you even should wear the pair of heels that would be perfect, but then of course you maybe feel bad because you never wear those, so you have to wear those, and then maybe they are uncomfortable. I hope you get what I mean, but I think like having items that are for very specific purposes that don't come up too often, especially if you have other items that can cover this purpose as well. I think, for me at least, they often made me feel guilty. I didn't use them as much as I wanted to use them. And overall, they just did not add value to my life, but I made it more complicated because I had to like think about when to use them, feel guilty if I didn't, kind of like make sure I make up enough opportunity to use them, things like that. And so by cutting them out of my life got easier and better. Another thing, and that might sound a bit sad, but I cut out of my life variety. And that is also meant in my wardrobe and in like other areas of my life, even maybe how I spend my time sometimes. But I think variety is good, if you enjoy it, and if there are many different things you like, and then you choose to do all of these things, you choose to wear all of these different things. And of course, to a certain extent, I still own variety, because, if you would take this to the extreme, that would mean having 10 black t-shirts and no other t-shirts. And I think for some people that might be right, because again, it eliminates a lot of decisions. It makes it impossible to choose the wrong one and things like that. But for me, eliminating a certain amount of variety, and now I don't mean, having just different bags, but also in my wardrobe, I don't have dresses, I don't own skirts, I don't own blouses or heels or belts or different other things, leggings, for example. And with eliminating a lot of this variety, it makes getting dressed a lot easier for me, because there's just a very easy formula. Every single day I'm gonna wear a pair of pants. So I don't have to think about, leggings and pantyhose and different kinds of socks and different kinds of like garments to wear. Now it's getting too bright. The same goes for my tops. Every single day I'm gonna wear like a top or a t-shirt, like a tank top or a t-shirt, and a sweater on top. and I don't own any cardigans or other things that could make my outfit any more complicated. And that just makes my life easier and better. But of course, in your case, it could be something else than your wardrobe. It could be, I don't know, the meals you eat each week. If you just cut them down to 10 different meals and every day you make one of these 10, maybe that makes your life easier. Or if you own 10 black t-shirts and never have to choose a different color, things like that. Also, of course, speaking about color, I also kind of limited the variety of color I have in my home and in my wardrobe, and it makes combining pieces a lot easier. Recently, I've reinvited a bunch of different colors and I feel great about that. But I think it can make your life so much better to cut out a certain amount of variety if it's not an area that's important to you. You know, if you can just eliminate things that are not important to you, that's always a good idea. Another thing, and I think that's very obvious, is bad quality stuff. Like if I have a good quality version, or if I, you know, save up or invest in a good quality version, then I can get rid of the bad quality one. Because I think spending our time with stuff that's not working is just taking so much energy and time. For me, for example, at some point I upgraded my laptop, and it's been 5 years, I think, but before I upgraded my laptop, I would spend so much time waiting for some applications to open up and things like that. Another example I talked about on this channel as well is a laundry basket I own. I used to have like a pink plastic one, and I just didn't like it. And now I have a beautiful wooden one that I got secondhand as well, and I like gifted the other one to somebody else, so no waste in the process. But I think it's a good idea to, like with time, make sure that the stuff you own makes you happy, you like using it, and it's good quality. And so I think it's always a good idea to get rid of stuff or replace stuff at some point that's just making you angry, taking too much time and effort to even use. And then the 10th, and I think very important one, is I'm trying to get rid of like arbitrary standards and rules and beliefs and mindsets that I have about myself and that maybe also society has about myself. Because I think there's so many things that can make my life harder if I try to please other people, if I try to live up to expectations that I think society has for me. So one of those would be, I used to think and to believe that having a YouTube channel is not a real job. But I experienced firsthand that it actually is a lot of work, and it definitely is a real job. And it was still hard for me to kind of get rid of this bad mindset about my job now. And other things, of course, are that, you know, women have to have long hair, or I have to, you know, present myself in a certain way, or certain boundaries some people think I am not allowed to have, or, you know, how I spend my time and how I live my relationships. Of course, always making sure that I'm not hurting other people, obviously. But I think there's so many standards that make our lives harder. And so I really want to try to live up to my expectations, to try to live my life and not live my life trying to meet expectations of people that are, especially that are not important to me. So that's been the 10 things that I decluttered and make my life better. And I'm sure there are a lot more. And I would be interested to know from you what the things are that you have decluttered, maybe like generalized areas, or also a very specific thing that made your life better. Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching this video. I will link you a video right here for 23 things to declutter in 2023, and I hope to see you there or otherwise in my next video. Bye!